So Mother's Day was a week ago. Happy Mother's Day to all the nurses, moms out there. You guys are badass. You guys are moms, which is the toughest job on the world. And you guys are nurses, which is the best profession in the world. So good for y'all, and you guys are badasses. But being a mom and working full time is a difficult thing. So yes, this is specific for nurses, but you can also extrapolate and talk about any mom that works in any job full time and is having some struggles. So this segment, I've got 3 tips for y'all for the nurses dealing with working mom guilt. And I didn't know how big of a thing this was, but I will. Let me just give you this background story based on, and this is from nurse.org, and it was a blog, and it was written by Shawnee Bruce. And I'm going to tell you her story, and then we can talk about the 3 tips. So, a little bit about her. I'll never forget one of the hardest days of my life as a working mom. I had just returned to work after having my 3rd child, a stubborn baby who refused to take a bottle of any kind. I had been picking up short shifts as I tried desperately to get him to take a bottle. That particular day, I had been mandated. My quick 4-hour shift dragged into 8, then 12, then 16, which only meant one thing. My son was starving. This is a truly, truly, truly sad story, right? Like, it's just heart-wrenching. So we can't control these things. Breastfeeding is looked upon as the best and only way to go about, right? So you pump and you dump, especially if you have to go pump and dump. You pump and you put it in a ball and you give it to your baby, especially if you have to work, right? And that's what majority of moms do that have to get back to work. But her son was not taking any bottles. She can't control that. It's a horrible thing. She was picked up a 4-hour shift that turned into an 8-hour shift, then a 12, then a 16-hour shift. So 16 hours of the baby not taking any of the milk. It's a scary, scary, horrendous situation. Let me just continue. Desperate with screaming and hungry baby, she couldn't feed my mom, who had been watching him, called up to the unit begging me to take a break and come to feed him. I stood at the nurse's station crying because I couldn't even take a break to use the restroom, let alone feed my son. Listening to my son crying because he needed me and my mom crying because she didn't know what to do was overwhelming. I think that this is one of them stories that really get me. I don't know how to feel. Not I don't know how to feel. That's not right. I don't have any experience of this kind of feeling, right? So my heart goes out to you moms out there. This is something that I've never once thought about. It's not something that is a part of my being, my life, right? So sure, I'm lucky, but this is something that all moms must go through, especially if they have to work. It's a scary, scary situation. So I am going to break this down and tell you the 3 tips that Shawnee's came up with that has helped her get through this situation. Okay, so tip number 1: acknowledge your feelings. Pushing your feelings away won't do any good, and instead will eventually stress you out even more. Instead, take a minute and sit with your feelings. Ask yourself what your guilt is trying to tell you. Maybe use a piece of paper to write out the thoughts that come to mind. You can also talk through things with a friend or a partner, whichever method you choose. Try to listen to what your feelings of guilt are telling you. And this sounds exactly like the nursing process. First, you want to assess the situation. Try to understand what your feelings of guilt is. Are you feeling guilty because you can't see your son, your daughter? Are you feeling guilty because you want to have that one-on-one time? Are you feeling guilty because you leaving your son, you leaving your kid, and you like the fact that you have some separation from your child? Are you feeling guilty because you feel like you need to pick up more at work? These are all legitimate reasons, and a million more reasons could be why you're feeling guilty. But try to first understand the actual reason you're feeling guilty, and not just say it's because I have a kid, or not just say it's because I'm a working mom. Try to find out the exact reason, which would then lead us to tip number 2. So, number 2, explore solutions. After you've given your guilt a chance to speak, it's time to get down to diagnosing the problem and working to solve it. So first you have to listen to yourself. Sit down with your feelings and really be honest with yourself and tell yourself, what is causing me to feel this way? Why do I feel like shit no matter what I do? right? You're between a rock and a hard place. You're a mom. You have a newborn at home. You want to spend every single minute, second with that newborn. Sometimes you need a break. You want to spend as much time as you want with the newborn. But at the same time, you need to go to work to feed this newborn. It is an impossible situation. So you've got to be honest with yourself. First, tell yourself why you feel guilty, and then try to figure out a plan. As a nurse, I've never had this. Like I said, this is not something I need to deal with in my life. But I have worked with nurses that are moms, and I hear them a lot say things like, I hate working 3 days in a row because I don't get to see my child. I hear them saying, I need to go in the back and just be on the phone with my kid. I need to FaceTime with my kid. There's a million different things. I know nurses that used to work full-time, 6 shifts a week, picking up as many hours, and once they have their kid, they switch over to part-time or per diem or whatever so they can spend more time. So you need to understand what the problem is, and then it's impossible. It's hard. You'll never be perfect with everything, but try your hardest. Speak to the manager, speak to your supervisor, speak to the nurses around you, and try to figure the situation out. The last thing I'll say about the nurses I've worked with, there was one situation where a nurse had to go, I think she was having a second or third kid. She didn't have much PTO time left, and this is a whole nother thing that we'll need to talk about later, because that's another huge problem that's causing these issues and guilt, is because here in America we don't have mandatory 12-week maternity leave, which should be an absolute must, especially in healthcare, but that is for another day. Back to the thing I was saying, one of the nurses left, didn't have that much PTO, and the nurses in the unit decided, you know what, we're going to start, each of us starting to give her some of the PTO that we've have in our saving bank and let her use that, which I think is just amazing, right? So share your feelings, talk to whoever you need to talk to, and try to come up with a sensible, resolve. And then the last tip, change the way your words. I never thought about this. I would have never thought about this in a million years, and I think this is the most creative tip of the three. She says, I believe that as moms, there's never a simple solution to banishing working mom guilt, if ever. It's a lifelong struggle, but one key strategy has helped me enormously in my own battle with mom guilt is changing how I talk about work. Instead of telling my kids that I have to go to work, complete with a sorrowful expression and a tear in my eye, I tell them that I get to go to work. And I love that. I think that's awesome. I think that's amazing. I mean, if just using if you changing the language about what you do every day, which is being a nurse, helps you look at it in a more positive way, by all means do it. And I love this because it's the most subtle, simple change that you can use, that can really make your outlook on life, your outlook on work, your outlook on having a kid and going to work as positive as ever, right? So instead of saying, oh my God, I have to work, I have to go to work, I can't be with my baby, you tell your kid, I get to go to work, I get to help out other patients, I get to give some empathy, some compassion to people, just like I would for you, right? And I get to share that with the world. And that would, I feel just saying that a little bit better. So yeah, those are the 3 tips. Number 1, acknowledge the problem. Why you're feeling what you're feeling. Number 2, try to talk and figure out a simple solution, a complex solution, any solution to your problem. And last but not least, try to change the way you look at things by changing your language when talking about work and the mom guilt and having a kid and being a working mom and being a super goddamn hero. Thank you guys for watching. I'm sorry, no pictures, no extreme cool stuff happening today, but we'll be jumping back on that next week. Just a whole lot happened this week with the Red Sox game. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Catch y'all later. Deuces.